The grand crystalline hall was the most beautiful place in the entire Valorian Empire. Its walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed inside it. Today, the hall was filled with hundreds of noble aliens from across the galaxy. They had come for the most important ceremony of the year, the ceremony of choosing. Princess Yuri stood at the far end of the hall with her three older sisters. She was the fourth princess, the youngest daughter of Emperor Daron. Her sisters were tall and beautiful, with deep purple skin and golden eyes that shone like stars. They stood proud and confident, knowing that many suitors would fight for their attention. Yuri was different. She was small, so small that she barely reached her sister's shoulders. Among the Valorians, who grew to be 7 feet tall on average, she was considered incomplete. A mistake. Some whispered that she was cursed. Others said that she should have been sent away at birth to save the royal family from shame. But Emperor Daron had refused. He loved his youngest daughter, even if tradition said he should not. The ceremony began with the sound of great drums. The Grand Minister, an old alien with white robes and a staff of crystal, stepped forward and raised his hands. "Let the choosing begin," he announced. His voice echoed through the massive hall. "Noble males of the Empire and beyond, you may now select your intended bride from the daughters of our great emperor." The first suitors approached the eldest princess. She was named Sira, and she was considered the most beautiful woman in the empire. 3 powerful lords immediately stepped forward to claim her. After a brief competition of words and promises, the strongest among them won her hand. Sira smiled proudly and took her place beside her chosen mate. The second princess was claimed just as quickly, then the third. And then there was only Yuri. She stood alone now. Her sisters had moved to the side of the hall with their suitors. Yuri's hands trembled slightly, but she kept them folded in front of her. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared herself for it, but nothing could truly prepare a heart for rejection. The remaining suitors looked at her. Some frowned. Some laughed quietly among themselves. A few simply turned away without a word. One tall warrior stepped forward, and for a moment, hope sparked in Yuri's chest. But he walked right past her and bowed to the Grand Minister instead. "I withdraw from the ceremony," he said loudly. "There are no worthy brides remaining." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Yuri felt her face grow hot with shame, but she did not move. She did not cry. She simply stood there, small and alone, like a single flower in a field of giants. Commander Rin was the next to speak. He was the most decorated warrior in the Empire, tall and muscular with scars across his face from 100 battles. He strode toward Yuri, and again she felt a tiny flutter of hope. But Rin stopped a few feet away from her and turned to face the crowd. "Look at her," he said, his voice dripping with disgust. "The Empire's shame, a princess who cannot even reach a warrior's chest. What male would want such a creature? She would give him weak children, small, useless offspring that would embarrass any noble house." More laughter, louder this time. Yuri's eyes burned with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She had learned long ago that crying only made things worse. So she stood still, her chin raised, her silver eyes fixed on some distant point above the crowd. Emperor Daron sat on his throne, watching everything. His hands gripped the armrests so tightly that the crystal began to crack. He wanted to stand up. He wanted to silence Rin with a single command. But the ancient laws were clear. During the ceremony of choosing, even the emperor could not interfere. The suitors had the right to accept or reject any princess they wished. Lady Hana, Yuri's personal attendant, stood in the shadows nearby. She was a young Valorian woman with kind eyes and a gentle heart. She had served Yuri since childhood, and she loved the princess like a sister. Watching this cruelty unfold made her want to scream. "How can they be so blind?" Hana whispered to herself. "She is worth more than all of them combined." But no one heard her, and no one stepped forward. The last few suitors made their choices clear. One by one, they rejected Yuri. Some did it silently, others made jokes at her expense. By the time the final suitor turned away, the message was clear. No one wanted the fourth princess. The Grand Minister cleared his throat. His old face showed a hint of sadness, but his duty was his duty. "The ceremony of choosing is nearly complete," he announced. "If no one else steps forward, Princess Yuri shall be recorded as unchosen. She will be removed from the line of succession and I choose her." The voice cut through the hall like a blade. It was calm and clear, but it carried a strength that made everyone stop. All eyes turned toward the observation gallery above the main floor. A figure stood there, leaning against the railing. He was not Valorian. He was much shorter, with tan skin and dark hair. His eyes were brown and warm, and he wore the simple uniform of a diplomatic observer. He was human. His name was Kang Suho, and he had been sent from Earth as a cultural ambassador to study Valorian customs. He had been watching the ceremony quietly for hours, taking notes and observing traditions. But when he saw the small princess standing alone, something inside him changed. He could not explain it. He did not fully understand it, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He could not stand by and watch her be destroyed. Suho straightened his uniform and began walking toward the stairs that led down to the main floor. The crowd parted before him, not out of respect, but out of shock. Whispers exploded through the hall. "A human. Is he mad? Does he not know his place?" Princess Yuri stared at him with wide eyes. Her heart was beating so fast that she thought it might burst. She had seen humans before, but only from a distance. They were considered a young species, barely 1,000 years into space travel. They were small, fragile, and short-lived compared to Valorians. Why would one of them humiliate himself for her? Suho reached the bottom of the stairs and walked toward her. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Commander Rin moved to block his path, his massive form casting a shadow over the human. "You have no right to be here," Rin growled. "Humans are lesser beings. You cannot participate in our sacred ceremonies." Suho stopped and looked up at the giant warrior without fear. "Under the Treaty of United Species," he said calmly, "any recognized ambassador holds the same legal standing as a Valorian noble during cultural ceremonies. I am Earth's ambassador. I have every right to participate." Rin's face twisted with anger, but before he could respond, Emperor Daron spoke. "He is correct." The Emperor's voice was quiet, but it silenced everything. He looked at Suho with a strange expression. It was not quite approval, but it was not rejection either. It was something closer to curiosity. "The human speaks the truth," Emperor Daron continued. "The treaty grants him the right to participate. Commander Rin, step aside." Rin clenched his fists but obeyed. He moved away slowly, his eyes burning with hatred. Suho continued walking until he stood before Princess Yuri. She was taller than him, even with her small stature for a Valorian. But he did not seem to notice or care. He simply looked at her with those warm brown eyes and bowed deeply. It was a bow of respect, the kind that humans reserved for those they truly honored. "Your Highness," he said softly, "I see no shame here, only grace." Yuri's lips parted, but no words came out. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever looked at her without pity or disgust. The Grand Minister approached them, his expression unreadable. "Do you truly wish to claim Princess Yuri as your intended bride?" he asked. Suho straightened and nodded. "I do." "Then it shall be recorded." The Grand Minister made a mark on his crystal tablet. Kang Suho of Earth is now the chosen suitor of Princess Yuri, fourth daughter of Emperor Daron. The hall erupted in chaos. Some nobles shouted in protest. Others laughed at what they saw as a joke. But in the middle of it all, Yuri stood frozen, staring at the human who had just changed her life forever. Commander Rin pushed through the crowd and pointed at Suho. "This is not over," he snarled. "If this human wants to claim a princess, he must prove his worth. He must complete the trial of bonding, 3 challenges that will test his strength, endurance, and courage." He leaned closer to Suho, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "These trials have killed beings far stronger than you, little human. You will die screaming, and the princess will remain unchosen, as she should be." Suho met his gaze without flinching. "I accept." And with those 2 words, the fate of 2 worlds began to change. The news spread across the Valorian Empire like fire through dry grass. A human had chosen the 4th princess. A small, fragile creature from a distant planet had dared to claim what no Valorian male wanted. Some called it brave, most called it foolish. A few called it an insult to the entire royal bloodline. Kang Suho sat alone in his quarters that night, staring out the window at the alien sky. 3 moons hung above the capital city, casting silver light across the towering buildings of crystal and metal. It was beautiful, but Suho could not enjoy it. His mind was too full of questions. Why had he done it? He was a diplomat, a man of words and treaties. He had come to Veloria to study their culture, not to become part of it. And yet, when he saw Princess Yuri standing alone in that great hall, something inside him had broken. He had seen the way they looked at her, the disgust, the mockery. He had watched powerful warriors pass her by like she was nothing, and he had seen her face, the way she held her chin high even as her world crumbled around her, the way she refused to cry even when tears would have been understandable. That was not weakness, that was strength, the kind of strength that most people never recognized because it was quiet. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Enter," he said. The door slid open, and a young Valorian woman stepped inside. She had soft lavender skin and eyes the color of morning sky. Her uniform marked her as a palace servant, but she carried herself with dignity. "Ambassador Kang," she said, bowing slightly. "I am Lady Hana, personal attendant to Princess Yuri. I have come to speak with you." Suho stood and gestured to a chair. "Please sit. Would you like something to drink?" Hana shook her head but sat down. She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "Why did you do it?" Suho leaned back in his chair. "I'm not sure I can explain it myself." "Try." Hana's voice was firm. "I have served Princess Yuri for 15 years. I have watched her suffer in silence while others mocked her. I have held her when she cried alone in her chambers. I will not let anyone hurt her again, not even someone who claims to be her savior." "I am not trying to be her savior." "Then what are you trying to be?" Suho thought carefully before answering. "On my planet, we have a saying. The measure of a person is not how they treat the powerful, but how they treat those who cannot fight back. Today, I watched an entire empire treat your princess like she was worthless, and I could not stay silent." Hana stared at him. "You barely know her." "I know enough. I know that she stood alone in a room full of giants and did not break. I know that she smiled at a servant girl earlier today when she thought no one was watching. I know that she reads books about human history in her private time." Hana's eyes widened. "How do you know that?" "I am an ambassador. It is my job to know things." Suho smiled slightly. "And I have good sources." For a moment Hana said nothing. Then slowly, the tension left her shoulders. "The trials will kill you," she said quietly. "You understand that, yes? Commander Rin designed them to be impossible for anyone but the strongest warriors. He hates the princess because she represents everything he despises: weakness, difference, change." "I understand." "And you still want to do this?" Suho nodded. "I gave my word." Hana stood and walked to the door. She paused before leaving and looked back at him. "I hope you are different from the others, human. I hope you are as good as your words suggest. Because if you hurt her, I will find a way to destroy you, treaty or no treaty." Then she was gone. The next morning, Suho was summoned to the throne room. Emperor Daron sat upon his crystal throne, surrounded by advisors and nobles. Princess Yuri stood to the side, wearing a gown of pale silver that made her look like moonlight given form. She did not meet Suho's eyes. Commander Rin stood in the center of the room, his arms crossed and his face filled with barely contained anger. "The human has agreed to the trial of bonding," Rin announced. "As tradition demands, he must complete 3 challenges to prove himself worthy of a princess. If he fails any challenge, his claim is void. If he dies, the princess remains unchosen." Emperor Daron raised one hand. "Explain the trials." Rin smiled coldly. "The first trial is the hunt of shadows. The human must enter the Black Forest alone and capture a shadow beast. He may use only his wits and whatever weapons he can carry." Whispers spread through the room. The Black Forest was a place of death, filled with creatures that even Valorian warriors feared. Shadow beasts were the most dangerous of all. They could become invisible in darkness and strike without warning. "The second trial is the Flame of Endurance," Rin continued. "The human must hold a burning ceremonial crystal until it dims. This tests his ability to withstand pain." More whispers. Valorians were naturally resistant to heat. Their skin could handle temperatures that would destroy human flesh. This trial was designed specifically to break Suho. "The third trial is a duel of combat. The human must face a champion chosen by the council." Rin's smile grew wider. "I volunteer myself for this honor." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Rin was the most deadly warrior in the Empire. He had never lost a duel. Sending him against a human was not a fair fight. It was an execution. Emperor Daron's expression remained neutral. "Does the human accept these terms?" All eyes turned to Suho. He stood calmly, his hands clasped behind his back. He knew what they expected. They expected him to refuse, to beg for mercy, to run away like the weak creature they believed him to be. "I accept," he said. Rin laughed. Brave words from a dead man. "Perhaps." Suho looked directly at the commander without fear. "But I have learned that dead men sometimes have a way of surprising everyone." He turned to Princess Yuri. Their eyes met for the first time since the ceremony. She looked afraid, not for herself but for him. There was something else in her gaze too, a question she was afraid to ask. Suho bowed to her respectfully. "Your Highness," he said softly, "I know you have no reason to trust me. I know that my actions yesterday must have confused you, but I want you to know something. I did not choose you out of pity. I chose you because I saw something that everyone else was too blind to see." Yuri's voice trembled. "What did you see?" "Courage," Suho straightened. "The kind that does not roar or strike. The kind that stands quietly in the storm and refuses to fall. That is worth more than size or strength or tradition. That is worth fighting for." A single tear slid down Yuri's cheek. She quickly wiped it away, but Hana, standing behind her, saw it clearly. And for the first time, Hana allowed herself to hope. The first trial was set for dawn the next day. Suho was given the night to prepare. He spent it studying everything he could find about shadow beasts, their habits, their territories, their weaknesses. While Valorian warriors relied on strength to defeat these creatures, Suho knew he could not do the same. He would have to use something else. His mind. When morning came, he stood at the edge of the Black Forest. Tall trees of dark purple rose above him, their branches blocking out the light of the 3 suns. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the sounds of creatures moving in the shadows. Commander Rin stood nearby with a group of soldiers. They were there to witness the trial, but their faces showed they expected to witness a death. "Enter the forest," Rin ordered. "You have until sunset to return with a shadow beast. If you fail to return, we will assume you are dead." Suho nodded and checked his equipment. A hunting knife, a length of rope, A small pack with food and water, nothing else. The Valorians laughed at his simple tools. Their warriors entered this forest with plasma weapons and energy shields. But Suho had learned something important from his research. Shadow beasts were not mindless killers. They were intelligent. They had families. They protected their territory not out of aggression but out of love for their young. Maybe he did not need to fight one. Maybe he just needed to understand one. He stepped into the darkness of the Black Forest, and the shadows swallowed him whole. Princess Yuri watched from the palace balcony, her hands pressed against the cold crystal railing. Hana stood beside her. "He will die," Yuri whispered. "No one survives the Black Forest without weapons." Hana shook her head slowly. "Perhaps, but I saw something in his eyes last night, something I have not seen in a Valorian male in many years." "What?" Hana looked at the distant forest, now hidden in morning mist. "Kindness, and kindness, Your Highness, can sometimes be the most powerful weapon of all." The Black Forest was darker than anything Suho had ever experienced. Even during the day, the thick branches above blocked all light from the three suns. He moved slowly and carefully, his eyes adjusting to the deep shadows around him. Every step made soft sounds on the ground covered with dead leaves. He had been walking for 3 hours. No shadow beast had appeared, but he knew they were watching. He could feel their eyes on him from the darkness between the trees. Suho stopped near a small stream and sat down on a fallen log. He opened his pack and pulled out some food. Then he did something strange. Instead of eating all of it, he placed half of the food on the ground in front of him. An offering. Minutes passed, nothing happened. Then he heard it, a soft rustling in the bushes nearby. 2 glowing eyes appeared in the darkness, watching him. They were silver like moonlight, and they studied him with careful intelligence. Suho did not move. He did not reach for his knife. He simply sat there, calm and patient, like he was waiting for an old friend. The shadow beast stepped out of the darkness. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Its body was made of living shadows that shifted and moved like smoke. It had 4 legs and a long tail. Its teeth were sharp, but its eyes held something unexpected. Curiosity. "I know you can understand me," Suho said quietly. "My research says your kind is intelligent, more intelligent than the Valorians give you credit for." The beast tilted its head, but did not attack. "I am not here to hurt you. I am here because I need your help." The beast made a low sound, something between a growl and a question. "I know, it sounds strange, a human asking a shadow beast for help," Suho smiled sadly. "But sometimes the universe puts us in strange situations. There is a woman who needs someone to fight for her. She is small and kind, and her world has treated her badly because she is different. I want to protect her, but to do that, I need to complete these trials." He gestured to the food on the ground. "I am not asking you to surrender. I am asking you to trust me. Come with me willingly, and I promise that no harm will come to you. After the trial, I will release you back into this forest. You have my word." The shadow beast stared at him for a long moment. Then it did something that shocked him. It lay down on the ground and rested its head on its paws, a gesture of acceptance. But before Suho could respond, a terrible cry echoed through the forest. The shadow beast jumped to its feet, fear in its silver eyes. It ran toward the sound without hesitation. Suho followed. They ran through the dark forest for several minutes until they reached a clearing. What Suho saw there made his blood run cold. 3 smaller shadow beasts, clearly young cubs, were trapped in a pit covered with sharp spikes. They had fallen into a trap set by poachers. The mother beast circled the pit, crying out in distress. She could not reach her children without falling in herself. Suho understood now. This was why she had been so defensive of her territory. She was not a monster. She was a mother protecting her family. "Stay here," he said to her. "I will help them." He climbed down into the pit carefully, avoiding the spikes. The cubs were frightened and injured, but none of their wounds were deadly. One by one, Suho lifted them up and carried them out. His arms were cut by the spikes. Blood ran down his hands, but he did not stop until all 3 cubs were safe. The mother beast rushed to her children, nuzzling them and making soft sounds of relief. Then she turned to Suho and bowed her head, a gesture of gratitude. Suho knelt before her. "Will you come with me now? I promise to keep my word." The shadow beast looked at her cubs, then back at him. Then she walked to his side and stood there, ready to follow him out of the forest. When Suho emerged from the black forest before sunset with a shadow beast walking peacefully beside him, the Valorians could not believe their eyes. Commander Rin's face twisted with fury. "What trick is this?" he demanded. "You were supposed to capture the beast, not befriend it." Suho shrugged. "Your rules said I must return with a shadow beast. You did not say how I must obtain it." The Grand Minister stepped forward and examined the situation. "He is correct. The trial requirements have been met. Kang Suho has completed the first challenge." The crowd murmured in amazement. Some nobles looked at the human with new eyes. He had done what no one expected. He had found a way to win without violence. Princess Yuri watched from her balcony, her heart pounding. When she saw Suho release the shadow beast back toward the forest, watching it run home to its cubs, something in her chest felt warm and light. He had kept his promise. He had shown mercy even when no one was watching. But there was no time to celebrate. The second trial would begin immediately. The flame of endurance was held in the Temple of Fire, an ancient building filled with sacred flames that never went out. Suho stood in the center of a circular arena, surrounded by thousands of spectators. Princess Yuri sat in the royal box with her father. Her hands were trembling. Commander Rin approached carrying a crystal the size of a fist. It glowed with intense heat, so bright that looking at it hurt the eyes. "This is a ceremonial crystal," Rin explained loudly. "It burns at temperatures that would melt steel. You must hold it until it dims. If you drop it or release it before then, you fail." He smiled cruelly. "Valorian skin can handle this heat. Human skin cannot. I expect this will be quick." Suho looked at the crystal. He knew the physics. He knew what this would do to his hands. The burns would be severe. The pain would be unimaginable. But he also knew something else. Pain was only pain. It could hurt him, but it could not break him unless he allowed it. "I am ready," he said. Rin placed the crystal in Suho's open palms. The pain hit him immediately. It was like holding a piece of a star. His skin began to blister within seconds. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. Some spectators turned away, unable to watch. Others laughed, waiting for him to scream and drop the crystal. But Suho did not scream. He stood perfectly still, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on a point straight ahead. Sweat poured down his face. His hands shook with agony, but he did not make a sound. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Commander Rin's smile began to fade. This was not possible. No human should be able to endure this. They were weak, fragile, they broke easily. 10 minutes passed. Yuri was crying. She could not help it. She could see the smoke rising from his hands. She could see the destruction happening to his body. And yet he stood there, silent and unbroken, holding on for her sake. "Why does he not scream?" someone whispered in the crowd. "Because he is not doing this for himself," Lady Hana answered quietly from her place behind Yuri. "He is doing it for her, and that kind of love does not break." 15 minutes passed. Finally, the crystal began to dim. Its light faded from blinding white to soft orange, then to gray. When it went dark, the Grand Minister raised his hand. "The trial is complete. Kang Suho has passed the flame of endurance." The crowd was silent. No cheering, no laughing, just stunned disbelief. Suho opened his hands and let the crystal fall to the ground. His palms were destroyed, covered with terrible burns that would take months to heal. but his face showed no emotion except quiet determination. A healer rushed forward to treat his wounds. Rin grabbed Suho's arm before they could reach him. "How?" Rin demanded. "How did you not scream?" Suho looked at him with calm eyes. "Pain shared is pain halved," he said. "I would not burden the princess with my suffering. She has carried enough burdens alone." He pulled his arm free and walked toward the healers, leaving Commander Rin standing alone in the arena, his face pale with shock and rage. That night, Princess Yuri broke protocol and visited Suho's quarters. She found him sitting by the window, his hands wrapped in healing bandages. He looked tired but peaceful. "You should not have done that," Yuri said, her voice thick with emotion. "You should not have hurt yourself for me." Suho smiled gently. "Would you have preferred I let them win?" "I would have preferred you live without pain." "Pain fades, Your Highness, but some things last forever. The look on your face when you thought no one would choose you, that will stay with me until I die. And if my pain could erase some of yours, then it was worth every second." Yuri knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "You are foolish," she whispered. "You are foolish and brave and kind, and I do not understand you at all." "You do not need to understand me. You just need to trust me for a little longer, one more trial." "The duel," Yuri's voice shook. "Against Commander Rin, Suho, he will kill you. He is the greatest warrior in our empire. No one has ever defeated him." Suho reached out with his bandaged hand and gently touched her cheek. "Then I will have to be the first." The night before the final trial, the palace was quiet. Most of the nobles had already made their predictions. Commander Rin would kill the human. The fourth princess would remain unchosen. Everything would return to normal. But in a small garden hidden behind the royal quarters, two people met in secret. Princess Yuri found Suho sitting on a stone bench, looking up at the three moons. His hands were still bandaged, but the healers said they were recovering well. Human bodies, they had discovered, were surprisingly good at healing themselves. "You should be resting," Yuri said as she approached. Suho smiled. "I could say the same about you, Your Highness." Yuri sat beside him on the bench. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The garden was peaceful, filled with glowing flowers that released soft light into the darkness. "I came to ask you something," Yuri finally said. "Something I should have asked from the beginning." "Ask." She turned to face him, her silver eyes searching his. "Why me? Out of everyone in that hall, why did you choose me? We had never spoken. You did not know me. And yet you risked everything, your position, your safety, your life, for a stranger." Suho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "On Earth, I grew up in a small village. My family was poor. We had nothing of value except each other. When I was young, the other children would mock me because my clothes were old and my shoes had holes. They said I was worthless, that I would never become anything." Yuri listened in silence. One day, an old teacher visited our village. All the children gathered to meet him, hopping to impress him with their skills. One boy was strong, another was fast, a girl could sing beautifully, and then there was me with nothing special to offer. "What happened?" The teacher asked each of us a question. He wanted to know what we would do if we saw someone in trouble. The strong boy said he would fight. The fast girl said she would run for help. But when he asked me, I said I would sit with them. I would stay beside them until the pain passed, because sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is simply your presence. Yuri's breath caught in her throat. The teacher chose me as his student, not because I was the strongest or the fastest, but because I understood something the others did not. Kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not foolishness. They are the foundations of true strength. Suho turned to look at her. "When I saw you standing alone in that hall, I saw myself. I saw the child who was told he was nothing. And I saw someone who refused to believe it, who held her head high even when the world tried to push her down. That is why I chose you. Not out of pity, not out of duty, but because I recognized your soul. A tear slid down Yuri's cheek. She did not wipe it away this time. You are going to die tomorrow, she whispered. Commander Rin has never lost a duel. He is taller, stronger, faster. He has trained for battle his entire life. You are a diplomat. You use words, not weapons. Yes. Then how can you be so calm? Suho reached out and took her hand gently, careful not to put pressure on his healing wounds. Because I have already won. Yuri shook her head in confusion. I do not understand. Whether I live or die tomorrow, something has already changed. The people saw a human refuse to give up. They saw someone stand for what is right even when it cost him everything. And they saw you, Yuri, not as the small princess, not as the empire's shame, but as someone worth fighting for. He squeezed her hand softly. That can never be taken away, no matter what happens in the arena. Yuri leaned forward and rested her forehead against his shoulder. Her body trembled with emotion. I do not want you to die, she whispered. I have spent my whole life being alone, and now, for the first time, I have found someone who sees me, really sees me. I cannot lose that. Suho wrapped his arms around her carefully. Then trust me, he said. Humans have survived worse than this. We are not fragile, we are stubborn, and I am the most stubborn of them all. The next morning, the arena was filled with thousands of spectators. This was the event everyone had been waiting for. The final trial. The duel between the human ambassador and the Empire's greatest warrior. Commander Rin stood on one side of the arena. He wore light armor and carried a massive plasma blade that hummed with deadly energy. His face was confident. His eyes showed no doubt. He had fought hundreds of battles and won them all. This would be no different. Kang Suho stood on the opposite side. He wore no armor, just simple training clothes. In his hand, he held only a standard combat knife, barely a foot long. The crowd laughed when they saw it. It was like bringing a stick to fight a storm. Emperor Daron rose from his throne. This duel will continue until one combatant surrenders or is unable to fight, he announced. There are no other rules. Begin. Rin attacked immediately. He crossed the arena in 3 massive strides, his plasma blade swinging in a wide arc that could have cut a building in half. The crowd gasped. The first strike would end this. But Suho was not there. He had moved at the last second, rolling to the side with surprising speed. The blade passed through empty air. Rin spun and attacked again, faster this time. Again, Suho dodged, and again, and again. Stop running, coward, Rin roared. Face me like a warrior. Suho said nothing. He simply kept moving, circling his opponent, watching every muscle and every movement. He was not running. He was studying. Rin grew frustrated. His attacks became wilder, more powerful but less controlled. He was used to opponents who stood and fought. He was used to ending battles quickly with overwhelming force. This human refused to cooperate. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Rin was breathing heavily now. His armor, designed for quick battles, was making him overheat. Sweat poured down his face. His swings were slower, less precise. Suho was tired too. His body ached from constant movement. His hands throbbed with pain beneath the bandages. But he had one advantage that Rin did not. He knew how to wait. You think you can outlast me? Rin laughed, but there was desperation in his voice. I am a Valorian. I can fight for hours. Then why are you shaking? Suho asked calmly. Rin looked at his hands. They were trembling, not from exhaustion but from rage. He was losing control. With a scream of fury, Rin charged forward with everything he had. It was his most powerful attack. It was also his most predictable. Suho dropped low, sliding beneath the massive swing. In one fluid motion, he rose behind Rin, grabbed the commander's arm, and used the alien's own momentum against him. Rin stumbled forward off balance. Before he could recover, Suho pressed his knife against the commander's throat. The arena fell silent. "Yield," Suho said quietly. Rin's eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. His plasma blade lay on the ground, knocked from his grip during the throw. He was at the mercy of a creature half his size. "This is impossible," Rin whispered. "You are nothing, you are weak." "Strength is not always about power," Suho replied. "Sometimes it is about patience. Sometimes it is about knowing your enemy better than he knows himself. And sometimes, Commander, it is about fighting for something greater than yourself." He pressed the knife slightly harder. "Yield, or I end this permanently." For a long, terrible moment, Rin said nothing. Then slowly his shoulders dropped. "I yield." The crowd erupted. Some cheered, others shouted in disbelief, but most simply stared in stunned silence. A human had defeated the greatest warrior in the Valorian Empire. Suho stepped back and lowered his knife. His body was shaking now, the exhaustion finally catching up with him. But he remained standing, his head held high. Princess Yuri broke from the royal box and ran into the arena. She did not care about protocol. She did not care about tradition. She only cared about reaching him. She caught him just as his legs gave out, wrapping her arms around him to keep him from falling. "You did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You actually did it." Suho smiled weakly. "I told you, stubborn." Emperor Daron approached them, his expression unreadable. The crowd fell silent, waiting to hear his judgment. "Kang Suho of Earth," the emperor said slowly, "you have completed all 3 trials. You have proven your worth against all expectations." He looked at his daughter, held in the arms of a human, and something in his ancient face softened. "But there is one final question." He stepped closer, his voice dropping so only they could hear. "Do you choose my daughter out of pity, Ambassador, or is there something more?" Suho looked up at the emperor, then at Yuri. Despite his exhaustion, his eyes were clear. "I will answer that question before your entire court, Your Majesty, if you allow me the chance." Emperor Daron studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Tomorrow, before the full assembly, you will declare your intentions for all to hear." He turned and walked away, leaving Suho and Yuri alone in the center of the arena, surrounded by a crowd that could not decide whether to celebrate or revolt. But neither of them cared about the crowd. They only cared about each other. The throne room was more crowded than it had ever been. Every noble house in the empire had sent representatives. Diplomats from a dozen different worlds stood along the walls. Even common citizens had gathered outside the palace, watching through screens that broadcast the ceremony across the planet. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Kang Suho stood in the center of the room, wearing formal clothes from his homeworld. A simple dark suit with clean lines and no decoration. Beside him, Princess Yuri wore a gown of pure white, decorated with crystals that sparkled like stars. She had never looked more beautiful. But she was nervous. Suho could see it in the way she held her hands, the slight tremor in her fingers. He understood. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. Emperor Daron sat on his crystal throne, watching them with ancient eyes. Behind him stood his advisors and guards. To the side, Commander Rin stood in civilian clothes, stripped of his rank and forced to witness this moment as a nobody. His face burned with shame and hatred. "Kang Suho of Earth," the emperor said, his voice filling the massive chamber. "You have completed the 3 trials of the bonding. You have proven yourself in ways that none expected. You have earned the right to stand before this court." He leaned forward slightly. "But the trials were tests of strength and endurance. They do not reveal the heart. Before I give my blessing to this union, I must know your true intentions. Why do you choose my daughter?" The room fell completely silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Suho turned to look at Yuri. She met his eyes, and in that moment everything else disappeared. The crowd, the throne, the entire empire. There was only her. Then he turned back to the emperor and began to speak. Your Majesty, when I first arrived on Veloria, I came as a student. I wanted to learn about your culture, your traditions, your people. I was taught that Velorians valued strength above all else. Size, power, the ability to conquer and dominate. These were the measures of worth in your society. He paused, gathering his thoughts. But when I stood in this very hall during the ceremony of choosing, I saw something that challenged everything I had learned. I saw a young woman who possessed none of those qualities. She was small. She was gentle. She had no armies, no wealth, no political power. By your standards, she was worthless. Some nobles shifted uncomfortably. The truth was not always pleasant to hear. And yet, Suho continued, his voice growing stronger, when every suitor in the empire passed her by, when grown warriors mocked her openly, when the entire world seemed to reject her existence, she did not break. She did not cry. She did not beg. She simply stood there, small and quiet, with more dignity in her silence than all of you showed with your cruelty. He looked directly at the nobles who had laughed at Yuri during the ceremony. Several of them looked away in shame. I did not choose Princess Yuri out of pity. Pity is what you feel for someone you consider beneath you. And I have never, not for a single moment, considered her beneath anyone. Yuri's breath caught. Her eyes glistened with tears. I chose her because she is the strongest person I have ever met. Not strong in the way you understand strength, but strong in ways that matter far more. Strong in kindness. Strong in grace. Strong in the ability to endure suffering without becoming cruel. Strong in the choice to remain soft in a world that punished her for it. Suho's voice filled the chamber now, steady and true. On Earth, we have a saying, anyone can love what is easy. True love is choosing what is difficult. True love is standing by someone when the world walks away. True love is seeing beauty where others see nothing. He turned to face Yuri fully. Your Highness, when I first saw you, I did not see a small princess. I saw a woman who refused to let the world define her worth. I saw courage dressed in silence. I saw a heart that remained gentle despite endless cruelty. I saw someone who deserved to be chosen not because of what she could offer, but because of who she already was. Tears were flowing freely down Yuri's face now, but she made no move to stop them. I did not step forward to save you, Suho said softly. I stepped forward because you had already saved yourself. You just needed someone to recognize it. He took her hand in his bandaged fingers gentle against her skin. I choose you, Yuri, not as a princess, not as a political alliance, not as anything but yourself. I choose your laughter and your tears. I choose your strength and your doubts. I choose every part of you today and every day for as long as I draw breath. He knelt before her, his eyes never leaving hers. If you will have me. The throne room was completely silent. No one moved, no one breathed. Then Princess Yuri spoke, her voice trembling but clear. When I was a child, she said, I asked my mother why I was born different. She told me that the universe makes everyone for a reason. She said that one day someone would see my purpose, even if I could not see it myself. She reached down and lifted Suho to his feet. I spent my whole life waiting for that person. I had almost given up hope. And then you walked down those stairs, a human with kind eyes and gentle words, and you looked at me like I mattered. Her voice broke with emotion. You are foolish and brave and kind. You faced death for me without hesitation. You held fire in your hands to prove your worth. You defeated the greatest warrior in our empire with nothing but patience and courage. And through all of it, you never once made me feel like a burden. She placed her hand on his cheek. You asked if I will have you. The answer is yes. 1,000 times yes. You are the only one I would ever choose. You are the only one who ever truly chose me. Emperor Daron rose from his throne. His face, normally so stern and unreadable, showed something unexpected. pride, and perhaps hidden deep beneath his royal mask, tears. "I have ruled this empire for 300 years," he said. "I have seen wars and peace, alliances and betrayals, heroes and villains. I thought I understood everything worth understanding." He walked toward them slowly. But today, this human, this small, fragile creature from a distant world, has taught me something I had forgotten. The measure of a person is not in their size or their power. It is in their heart. It is in their willingness to stand when everyone expects them to fall. He placed one massive hand on Suho's shoulder and the other on Yuri's. "I, Emperor Daron of the Velorian Empire, bless this union. Kang Suho of Earth shall be named Prince Consort. He shall be granted all rights and privileges of our royal house, and Princess Yuri shall no longer be called the fourth princess." He smiled, a rare expression that transformed his ancient face. "She shall be known as the Princess of Unity, a symbol of what two worlds can accomplish when they choose love over tradition." The crowd erupted. This time there were no mocking laughs, only cheers and applause that shook the crystal walls of the throne room. Commander Rin stood frozen in the corner, watching everything he believed in crumble. The small princess he had mocked was now the most celebrated woman in the empire. The human he had tried to destroy was being welcomed into the royal family. He had lost, completely and utterly. But no one paid attention to him. He was already forgotten. The celebration lasted for 3 days. There was music and dancing and feasting. Diplomats from Earth arrived to join the festivities, marveling at the story of their ambassador who had won a princess through kindness and courage. On the final night, Yuri and Suho stood together on a balcony overlooking the capital city. The 3 moons were high in the sky, casting silver light across the world. "It still does not feel real," Yuri said quietly. "A week ago I was the Empire's shame. Now I am celebrated. How quickly things change." Suho wrapped his arm around her. "You were never a shame. The Empire was just too blind to see your worth. That was their failure, not yours." Yuri leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, we build something new. A bridge between our worlds. A future where humans and Velorians work together instead of seeing each other as enemies." "That sounds like a lot of work." Suho laughed. "It will be, but I have discovered that I am good at difficult tasks, especially when I have the right partner." Yuri looked up at him, her silver eyes shining. "You made me believe I was enough," she whispered. Suho kissed her forehead gently. "You always were, Yuri. You always were. The universe just needed time to see it." They stood together in silence, watching the moons rise over a world that had finally learned what true strength really meant. And somewhere in the Black Forest, a mother shadow beast curled around her 3 cubs, at peace in a world where even the strangest connections could lead to the most beautiful outcomes. The story of the human who chose the little princess would be told for generations. Not because he was strong, not because he was powerful, but because he was kind. And sometimes, kindness is the greatest power of all.